A Vietnam veteran walks into a psychiatric clinic in Boston. He has been home for 3 years. The war is over, but for him, it isn't. In the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, while buying groceries or driving to work, a car backfires, and in an instant, he is back. Not remembering the war, living it. His heart pounds, his hands shake, his body floods with the same terror it felt in the jungle decades ago, on a Tuesday in a parking lot. His mind knows he is safe. His body does not. This veteran was one of the first patients of a young psychiatrist named Bessel Kolk. And what Kolk discovered while working with him and with thousands of patients over the next 40 years would revolutionize everything we thought we knew about trauma, stress, anxiety, and healing. The discovery was this: traumatic experiences are recorded not just in our minds, but in our physical selves. This physical score can manifest as chronic pain, anxiety, and health issues that persist long after the original event has passed. The body keeps the score, not the mind, not the memory, the body. This is The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel Kolk. Published in 2014, it explores the complex ways trauma affects individuals and provides innovative solutions for recovery that go far beyond what traditional psychiatry has offered. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 lessons from this book. And I want to say something before we begin. You don't have to be a Vietnam veteran to need this book. You don't have to have survived something catastrophic, because Kolk's most important finding is one that will surprise you. Trauma is far more common and far more quietly devastating than almost anyone realizes. Let's begin. Bessel Kolk is a professor of psychiatry at Boston University School of Medicine. He has been researching trauma for over 30 years and published over 150 peer-reviewed scientific papers. He also founded the renowned Trauma Center in Brookline, Massachusetts, which has treated thousands of traumatized adults and children. He is not a philosopher or self-help writer. He's a scientist who spent 4 decades sitting with some of the most broken people in America, veterans, abuse survivors, neglected children, and asking one question over and over: why aren't the standard treatments working? This isn't a self-help book filled with quick fixes. It's a deep, compassionate, and scientifically backed exploration of how trauma physically changes us, our brains, our bodies, and our relationships. And what he found changed the field of psychiatry forever. Here is the most important reframe in the entire book. And it's the one that will matter most to the person watching this. When most people hear the word trauma, they think of war veterans. They think of survivors of violence or catastrophic accidents. They think, that's not me. Kolk spent his career dismantling that assumption. Traumatic experiences are far more common than generally acknowledged, ranging from child abuse and domestic violence to war and natural disasters. 1 in 3 couples engages in physical violence. These statistics underscore trauma as a pervasive public health issue. But more than statistics, Kolk redefines what trauma actually is. Trauma is not the event itself. It is not merely about the events that occur, but about the imprint left by those experiences on the mind, brain, and body. This imprint has profound effects on the individual's feelings, thoughts, and physical health. This means it's not about what happened to you, it's about what happened inside you as a result. A child who grew up in a home where love was unpredictable, where a parent's mood was the weather that determined whether the day was safe or dangerous, that child may never have experienced violence, but their nervous system learned something. The world is not safe. I cannot trust. I must always be on guard. And that lesson,
That physiological adaptation stays long after they've left that home, long after they've built a life that looks, from the outside, completely fine. While humans are incredibly resilient, traumatic events leave indelible traces on our minds, emotions, biology, and even our immune systems, impacting an individual's capacity for joy, intimacy, and overall well-being. Kolk is essentially saying, if you struggle with anxiety you can't explain, if you feel numb in situations where you should feel something, if your body tightens or shuts down in ways that don't match the situation you're actually in, that's not weakness. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. And understanding that is the first step toward healing.
To understand why trauma is so hard to shake, you have to understand what it actually does to the brain. And Kolk, as a neuroscientist, goes deep on this. 3 parts of the brain matter most here. The first is the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. When you experience something terrifying, the amygdala fires. It floods the body with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and kicks you into fight, flight, or freeze. That's the system working perfectly. The problem comes after. In traumatized people, the amygdala stays on high alert even when the threat is gone. It begins firing at things that remind it of the original threat: a smell, a sound, a tone of voice. The alarm rings even when the house isn't on fire. The second is the prefrontal cortex, the rational, thinking brain. This is the part that says, you're safe. That was then, this is now. Traumatic experiences, particularly in childhood, disrupt the normal development of brain structures responsible for cognition and emotional regulation, leading to memory gaps, distortions, and fragmentation. In trauma, the connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex is weakened. So when the alarm fires, the rational brain can't turn it off. The person knows they're safe, but their body doesn't believe it. The third is Broca's area, the part of the brain responsible for putting experience into words. Kolk discovered something remarkable in brain scans of traumatized patients. During flashbacks, Broca's area essentially goes dark, which is why trauma survivors so often say, I can't explain it. I don't have words for it. It's not that they're unwilling. The part of their brain that makes language literally shuts down. This is why talk therapy alone, while valuable, is often not enough for trauma, because the trauma isn't stored in words. It's stored in the body itself, as sensation, as muscle tension, as chronic pain, as a nervous system stuck in a loop it cannot escape through conversation alone. Which brings us to the most important lesson in the book.
This is the idea the entire book is built on. And it's one of those ideas that once you understand it, you start seeing everywhere. Kolk consistently highlights how trauma fragments an individual's experience, creating a disconnection between mind and body. Traumatized individuals often struggle to inhabit their bodies, feeling numb, disconnected, or overwhelmed by physical sensations. The body, not the conscious mind, is where trauma lives. Think about what happens in your body when you're suddenly frightened. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, your breathing changes, your stomach clenches. These are not metaphors. These are real, measurable, physiological events. And in a person with unresolved trauma, these physiological responses get triggered again and again, not just during actual danger, but during anything that the nervous system has coded as similar to danger. The Vietnam veteran in the parking lot wasn't imagining it. His body was replaying a real physiological state, a state it had learned in the jungle was associated with survival. Kolk documented this in countless patients: chronic back pain with no structural cause, autoimmune conditions, gastrointestinal problems, persistent fatigue, skin disorders. Not imagined, not hypochondria. The body remembering trauma, even when the conscious mind may not, leads to real, measurable physiological changes, including a recalibration of the brain's alarm system and an increase in stress hormones. There is a passage in this book that stopped me completely. Kolk describes patients who have no conscious memory of their trauma. They cannot tell you what happened to them, but their bodies tell the story, in posture, in chronic illness, in the way they flinch at certain sounds. The body remembers, even when the mind has forgotten, even when the person has built a life that looks whole from the outside. The body remembers, and until the body is addressed, healing is incomplete.
Kolk is not anti-therapy, he's anti-incomplete therapy. And his central argument, the one that made this book controversial in some psychiatric circles, is that traditional talk therapy, while valuable, cannot reach the part of the body where trauma is stored. Remember, during trauma, Broca's area, the language center, goes dark. Trauma doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in physical sensation, in the tightening of the chest, in the held breath, in the flinch. So asking someone to talk their way through a traumatic memory without also addressing what that memory does to their body is like trying to treat a broken leg with conversation. You might understand the break better, but the bone isn't healed. This is where the book becomes genuinely exciting, because Kolk doesn't just diagnose the problem. He explores innovative treatments, from neurofeedback and meditation to sports, drama, and yoga, that offer new paths to recovery by activating the brain's natural neuroplasticity. He documented remarkable results with EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, where patients process traumatic memories while tracking a moving stimulus with their eyes. The bilateral stimulation appears to help the brain reprocess stored trauma. Yoga and movement, which help traumatized people reconnect with their bodies in a safe, controlled way, rebuilding the body awareness that trauma severs. Theater and play, especially for children, which allow the nervous system to process experience through story and movement rather than direct confrontation. Neurofeedback, which uses real-time brain data to help patients learn to regulate their own nervous system responses. The common thread in all of these? They work through the body, not just the mind. Therapies that involve the body, such as yoga, meditation, theater, and neurofeedback, can be especially effective in healing trauma by addressing both its psychological and physiological effects. After everything Kolk documents, and some of it is genuinely heavy, he ends not with despair. He ends with hope, because the most important finding in all of his research is this: the brain can change. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, new patterns, new ways of responding, means that the nervous system that was shaped by trauma can be reshaped by healing. It is not permanent. It is not your destiny. Kolk outlines several principles for healing that emerge from his decades of research. First, safety before everything. Healing begins with establishing a sense of safety, both in the environment and within the body itself. Without safety, the nervous system cannot begin to regulate. You cannot process trauma while still in the environment or relationship that caused it. Second, reconnect with the body. Mindfulness, paying attention to present moment experiences with curiosity and non-judgment, encourages a gentle shift in awareness from chaotic thoughts to the sensations and experiences of the body. Yoga, breathwork, walking in nature, any practice that brings you back into your physical self.
Third, find your window of tolerance. Kolk describes a zone between shutdown and overwhelm where healing actually happens. Too much activation and the nervous system floods. Too little and it shuts down. The goal is to gently expand that window through movement, through therapy, through safe relationships, until the world feels tolerable again. Fourth, connection. The Body Keeps the Score exposes the tremendous power of our relationships, both to hurt and to heal, and offers new hope for reclaiming lives. Safe attachment, being witnessed, being believed, these are not luxuries in trauma recovery. They are medicine. Vander Kolk ends the book with a conviction he earned the hard way through decades of sitting with people who had every reason to give up. The human capacity to heal is extraordinary, not inevitable, not automatic, but extraordinary. And with the right support, the right approaches, and the willingness to stop pretending that the body isn't part of the story, people recover. Not to who they were before, sometimes to someone stronger.
Let's bring it home. The 5 lessons from The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Lesson 1. Trauma is not about what happened. It's about the imprint it left. And it's far more common than you think. Lesson 2. Trauma physically changes the brain, the alarm system, the rational mind, and the language center all affected. Lesson 3. The body stores trauma as sensation, tension, and chronic physical response. The mind can forget, the body cannot. Lesson 4. Talk therapy alone is often not enough. Healing requires working through the body, through movement, breathwork, and approaches that reach below language. Lesson 5. Healing is real and possible. Safety, body reconnection, and human relationship are the foundation. I want to say something directly to anyone watching this who recognize themselves somewhere in this video. The anxiety that doesn't make sense, the body that tightens without warning, the numbness where feeling should be, the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. That is not weakness. That is a nervous system doing its best with what it was given. And van der Kolk's life work is essentially one long argument for a single idea. You are not broken. You are adapted. And adaptation, unlike damage, can be transformed. If this gave you something today, hit subscribe. Every week we break down one extraordinary book into the ideas that can change how you understand yourself and the world. Next week, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, the book that has been on the nightstand of more self-made millionaires than almost any other ever written. See you then.